Then.
That. Coming right back to where I started, following in Sheena's footsteps at the Queen Mother's many years ago, and thinking about delayed cord clamping in preterm babies. And I'm just going to present our approach to it in the neonatal unit at the Children's Hospital in Glasgow, which has come around as part of a quality improvement programme which actually started with focusing on how to improve temperatures at delivery.
Before you carry on, could you say that David's setting up the camera so we can video your presentation, Anne-Marie, just so that we can cascade it to people who are not able to come here today?
Okay, all right. So, but even before I go back to what we were doing with Get Set 1 and 2, which was our quality improvement project, which included as part of it delayed cord clamping, I should say that, of course, many of us here, not least of which Dr. Kinman, realised many years ago, she won't like me putting the date on this, 1993, that delayed cord clamping was good for preterm infants. This was a randomised controlled trial. Sheena was the lead author, published in the BMJ, showing that if you delayed cord clamping in the delivery of preterm infants, you significantly increased their packed cell volume. And as well as doing that, you also improved a range of other respiratory outcomes, which was very interesting. I think Sheena understood the mechanism for that. I like to think I might have understood the mechanism for that. And I think the rest of the world is probably just starting to catch up with the whole idea behind the mechanism for that and why delayed cord clamping really is vital and important at delivery. In obstetrics, for those of you who are obstetricians here, you're of course way ahead of the curve just now. You figured out some years ago that not clamping the cord immediately after delivery was actually a very good thing for babies. The nice statements are that women who do not have the cord clamped earlier than 1 minute after birth, unless there's concern about the integrity of the baby's heartbeat, and the rationale is that that increases hemoglobin concentrations in the infants, reduces the risk of later iron deficiency, which of course impacts on later health and educational benefits, and results in a greater degree of vascular stability in the babies. So obstetrics are way ahead. It took a long time though for the idea of delayed cord clamping in preterm infants really to gain traction, and it's probably because we are concerned, of course, that when preterm infants are delivered, that they need our help, don't they? They need our help to get breathing, they need our help because they are very sick and we have to clamp that cord immediately and take them away to the resuscitator and do lots of special things to them. And there is some truth in that. It is perhaps a difficult and challenging thing to provide support for babies during delayed cord clamping. But nonetheless, there has been some traction, and the Cochrane review in 2012 looked at now 15 randomised controlled trials, including Dr. Kinman's, quite a number of babies, looked at delayed cord clamping up to 180 seconds, but that's really a very varied group of trials because some of them were anything over 30 seconds, up to 3 minutes here. But what they did show in totality was that you did significantly reduce the number of early blood transfusions required in these infants. You did reduce the number of infants who had significant IVH. You did reduce the number of cases of NEC. And the only potential side effect was that you seemed to increase your serum bilirubin a little bit, but really 15 millimoles here or there is nothing for any of us. So that was very encouraging, and we all felt we should be practicing delayed cord clamping. The rest of the world didn't necessarily get it. The Australians were very slow to come on board with this. So in 2017, and the years leading up to that, from about 2014 onwards, they did a huge big Australian placental transfusion study. And they managed to get 1,500 babies less than 13 weeks of a plan that they get delayed cord clamping for 60 seconds versus immediate cord clamping. And they didn't talk about supporting those babies at all during that period of transition. I think that's important. And they didn't have a brilliant adherence, 73%, but they did have an impact on mortality. But none of the secondary outcomes they had anticipated, like transfusion requirement, inotrope, major IVH, respiratory outcomes. Meanwhile, in the UK, a much smaller study was going on as a pilot study, looking at delayed cord clamping with bedside stabilisation. So this was a UK cord study, and I'll come to how they did that in a few minutes. And they went up to well over 2 minutes of delayed cord clamping for these babies. They get very good adherence, and they found a significant reduction in mortality as well, but it was only a small study and it didn't have the power to look at other secondary outcomes that we might have expected differences in. roll on a little bit from there. All of that data was put together into a new meta-analysis. This came out in the American Journal of Obs and Skin as a report of major impact, showing that when you now put all 18 trials of delayed cord clamping together, you had almost 3,000 infants. Some of them were term, some were preterm, but across the board, delayed cord clamping had a significant impact in mortality for preterm, late preterm, and very preterm and later preterm groups. In addition, there was a significant reduction in the need for blood transfusions, and although the significance isn't clear, there were better 1-minute APGAR scores in the groups who were having more prolonged delayed cord clamping. So, are we all doing this? Not necessarily. Why are we not doing it? It's difficult sometimes to tease out what the barriers are because it seems such clear good things that we should be doing it. What's happened in the interim though is what I suspect people in the veterinary profession knew many years ago, and I think people like Dr. Ginman knew, is that delaying cord clamping isn't just about giving a few extra blood cells. It's much more multi-organ transition that babies have to undergo when they're born. And when I say people in the veterinary profession understood this, it's been very clear for many years that if you owned an expensive racehorse and if it was having a foal, the last thing in the world you did was clamp the cord when it was delivering, because if you did that, they got RDS and they died. So something is going on that's really affecting the well-being of those newborns. And now there are nice physiological models and animal experiments that really support this. So if you think that when the baby is just born, it's in a transition, its heart has been using the placenta as the organ of respiration, and it has to switch to using the lungs as its organ of respiration. And in order for that to happen, blood has to switch, and it's 30 to 50% of the baby's circulating volume from here into here. In order to do that effectively, the baby really has to take a breath in or to have its lungs open to switch that fluid. And by doing so, you start to very rapidly reduce the pulmonary vascular resistance in these lungs. And there are lovely videos that show you this happening actually. Even if you can aerate one portion of those lungs, the blood flow in the rest of them will dramatically increase. So there's some switch in pulmonary vascular resistance that happens very quickly if you can inflate any part of these lungs. As that happens, blood gets sucked in through the right ventricle, which is able to fill up, pumps the lungs. The lungs are almost jacked open then by that blood coming in, that sort of increased blood flow around all these fine networks of vessels around the alveoli, opens them up, and then you get increased pulmonary venous return to the left atrium, which actually then fills the left ventricle properly and gives it the preload it needs to actually manage the circulation. Because as soon as you clamp these arterial umbilical arteries, you'll get a very dramatic increase in systemic vascular resistance because you're changing from a low resistance circuit to a high resistance systemic circuit, and the baby doesn't cope with that well if you clamp that before the left ventricle is full. So you've got both pulmonary and systemic adaptation going on, and you're looking at a net shift in whole blood volume from the placenta into the baby. So if you do it properly, the baby breathes, you reduce. If you do it improperly, you'll reduce right heart filling, you'll reduce cardiac output by up to 30%, you'll get a reflex secondary bradycardia, an increase in systemic vascular resistance and blood pressure. You'll reduce the total red blood cell volume coming to the baby, and you'll reduce its potential iron stores, which even for a healthy term maybe matters. There are now very beautiful, really exquisitely done animal models demonstrating this process. So this is Stuart Hooper's lab in Melbourne. He's a very well-known physiologist now who did fetal lamb studies, and he showed that if you delivered fetal lambs, we'll call them baby lambs, and you delivered them anaesthetised and you clamped the cord before breathing had begun, and you compared them to a group where you delivered them and you clamped the cord after ventilation onset, you get a very different pattern. On the left, you get a very dramatic increase in blood pressure, you get a fall in pulmonary blood flow, and you get a dramatic increase in cerebral artery blood flow. if you get ventilation going, first of all, you get a lovely smooth transition and these things don't change. And that probably explains a lot of what we've observed about why very preterm babies are liable to intracranial, well, intraventricular, periventricular hemorrhage if you clamp the cord immediately. And it possibly also explains why cardiac output is much better maintained in babies with delayed cord clamping. It's not just the volume, but you've taken the afterload off the left ventricle. So to show it very nicely and schematically again, we can show here in this little model that if you can aerate the lungs, you can dramatically increase the amount of blood coming into the right heart. It will now flow preferentially to the pulmonary circulation and not bypass it, bring oxygenated blood back to the left side of the heart, fill up your left ventricle and improve your systemic circulation. And all in all, that probably explains why we're seeing these widespread changes in adaptation in babies who haven't had their cord clamped early. So our conclusions from that were, well, delayed cord clamping does reduce mortality, and that's really important. It reduces the need for blood transfusions, it reduces, across most studies, the instance of early respiratory distress or the degree of respiratory support required. It reduces the instance of major periventricular hemorrhage, and it seems to have some impact in the development of necrotizing enterocolitis. So we feel, yes, it should be offered to all newborns. It's now standard in most guidelines to some extent, though they're a little bit cautious about saying, should you offer this to a baby who you think needs resuscitation? I think that's what we need to talk about. At the moment, we had said don't do this for monochorionic twins, monochorionic twins. They were looking at for obstetricians. I think you have to have that discussion with them on an individual basis. And for now, we're not doing it to babies delivered with congenital diaphragmatic hernia, but there's real evidence that it helps these babies too. So respiratory and circulatory transition are linked, and we feel that it's stabilisation and breathing, not the time delayed cord clamping, that should be the focus. Okay, so is now moving away from saying we delay cord clamp for X seconds. What we should be saying is we try and transition these babies with the cord intact. So the UK approach to bedside stabilisation has really focused on using the Life Start trolley. It started life as the basics trolley. I'll show you how it started life in a minute. Meaning bedside assist.
I'm reading the bedside trolley.
And that was published and that was used in the UK cord trial, and actually a lot of big North American trials have used it now. So I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it is being utilised around the world, and I think we need to look at how to use that. So this is how it started. This was the Glasgow trolley when I was a very young registrar, and it was a lunch trolley from over the mum's beds in the postnatal wards. And we just said, well look, that goes up and down, mum's beds go up and down, the babies are being delivered. We need to get something that goes up and down. And with the team in Liverpool and some clever people in physics, they developed this little trolley, which we then handed over to a commercial company along with all the rights. And they developed it further. And this is the initial Life Start trolley that some of you might have seen. It's not quite the final version, but that's sort of what it looks like. It's a portable platform with gas supplies and a heated backrest that can get up close to the mum and the baby. So, what did we think we needed to do to make all of this happen in Glasgow? Well, we were very naive probably. We thought we've got our Life Start trolley and we need to have a quality improvement project because we realised that our babies are very preterm babies are coming in cold from labour ward far too often. So we set up a little project called Get Set for labour ward. Get Set stood for saturations, ECG and temperature, because we wanted that in every baby in the resuscitator, and we wanted to do continuous temperature monitoring. And we really focused on things like getting delivery room temperatures up, making sure all our kit was pre-warmed, taking our transport ventilator humidified gases and good quality CPAP into delivery rooms so we could use that, and looking at other evidence-based things like plastic bags and temperature monitoring. And we said, and yes, of course, we'll use the Life Start trolley, or at least a transformer to keep the babies warm during cord clamping. A year in, and I'll show you in a minute, we discovered that the bit that wasn't working was the delayed cord clamping. So we'd had a time to think about it. We said, okay, let's re-educate, roll this out, see if we can set it up more efficiently, and encourage everyone that actually we really need to be moving towards physiological based cord clamping. Use all that respiratory support that we've put into labour ward and that continuous monitoring during the period of transition and delayed cord clamping, and only stop, not at 45 seconds or 60 seconds, but when you're happy that the baby's got breathing established, the heart rate's over 100 beats per minute and the saturations are rising. We said they're 75%, I think we're a bit more ambitious now, we want them up into the mid-80s to 90s. And then we take the baby, is fully monitored already on the trolley, we wrap it up and it goes straight to mum for a cuddle. And we've audited it and we put out these audit forms, but more importantly, quite extensive, we set up a teaching package and a system for trying to make it work. And I think the system is probably quite important. So this is now not quite how, but almost how our Life Start looks now. So we've put this respiratory support device onto it because we realise that babies do need to breathe to facilitate this, and if they're not breathing, we need to have a quick way of helping them. So this is quite nice in that it does produce a nice CPAP, and we're using it really for mask ventilation to get the babies breathing. We have our trolleys so that they can be covered in a drape, so they're good for our theatre. We've got our monitor on it, and all of our monitoring goes through there. And we have our specialist circuits for it. So we're kind of set up looking like that. And when it's all set up, it looks like this. We have this end, here's the end that's going to meet the baby. We've got our trolley. I should say underneath this sterile blue cover, we have a transformer every single time. It's switched on every single time, because what we realise very quickly is we're not going to a radiant heater. It's too cumbersome, it gets in the way. And without a radiant heater, it is a challenge to keep these little babies warm. We've then got our plastic bag, but on top of that we've got a sterile towel, and we're going to dry the baby off with that before we take it away, because if there's no radiant heater, we don't want a bag of fluid inside that plastic bag, it just gets cold. And then at the other end, the business end for our team stand, we've now got our monitor up here, and we've got our circuit on, we've got a PD cap in the end so we can see if we're getting CO2, we've got the right kind of mask we want, we've got saturations, ECG and temperature probes all ready to go there, and we've got our gas and air supplies coming through here. And to help staff do this, we have grab bags that are all ready to go with absolutely everything you need in it, and we have a monitor specially configured that sit on the trolley. And you grab from the station and the unit, if you're called out to delivery, you grab one of those monitors. And beside this, we use our transport incubator, which has got a ventilator on it and a humidifier on it, so we can give high quality CPAP or ventilation if we need to as soon as we can. We'll get a big monitor which has an umbilical cable that will connect us to this one if we want to. So if we're on there with the baby, people can see what's going on up here and read back. And that's how it looks with a baby on it. So we've got transport and respiratory support and all of that stuff there. And this means, though, which you see is quite big, we have to really work with our labour ward staff and theatre staff to say, if you are delivering a preterm baby, we need to be in before you and get this set up. You don't, it depends on the gestation of the baby, you might not need all of that, but for us it's a bit of a challenge to get everything in. And for our own staff, we've had to do a huge amount of teaching of actually what it's like to stabilise a baby on the trolley, because instead of having them in the resuscitator where they're close beside you and you've got complete control, they're down at the other end often of this trolley on a short cord. And we've had to do a lot to show people how it works and all of these things. And you can see there, our technique is to get the plastic bag around the baby's head, like a hat, to use the PD cap to see if we are actually shifting air, if they're starting to breathe, and to sometimes just when the ECG leads are on, just to get them a little hold for a minute to get them to stick, because heart rate's quite challenging. And that's what another view of how it looks. But training is essential, and what we've learned very early is that actually teaching people how to do airway management in this position, to have role allocation and spatial awareness are absolutely key. They are totally vital. We've had to figure out how to do it in labour ward and in theatre, because both are different, so our midwifery staff got on board and said, okay, this is Tina, our labour ward, who's had our preterm Annie, and the things that does require planning, and they said the best way we think to do this is that we lower the bottom of the bed and that you get in there, and that as we're about to deliver, we step aside and you come in. You could alternatively come from the side, and that does work too, as a baby coming over a mum's thigh, but they felt this was the preferred route. And you do have to do things like say, okay, can we get the scales out there? Can we get the big chairs out there? Can we we focus on this and get all the other paraphernalia away. And if you don't need your CTG monitor anymore, can you move that to the side to let us in? But what is important for both theatre staff and delivery room staff is that they do deliver the baby onto the trolley, and it's not us, because paediatricians or neonatologists are not good at handling the cord. We don't get that it's attached to the placenta and mum very quickly. It takes a bit of time. So we work with the delivery nurse to do this. And the same in theatre, except it's an aseptic approach, but that drape that we use everywhere, that sterile drape that the company produce, means that the trolley is kept clean, but we have the same approach regardless. So it's just the same setup, sterile blanket on there to dry the baby. And again, it is about having taken the time to have your neonatal staff scrubbed and ready to go in, have communication with the surgical team, to have a surgical pause, and to make sure that there's a real role allocation and people know what they're doing. So we usually get the scrub nurse to stay scrubbed, and she can actually lean over and help dry the baby and stimulate them. And we have a doctor and a neonatal nurse. The neonatal nurse gets in there. The obstetrician just steps out of the way, lets them in. They put on the monitoring, and someone else manages the airway. And the one thing I think I'd say we have learned, if we can get this video up somehow, we'll show you, is that more often than not, the baby just needs stimulation to take those first breaths. And if you can give them that and keep them warm and get them breathing, and just give them a couple of minutes, they will transition themselves most of the time. And it's just about everyone giving them that chance. You can prepare in advance for theatre, so we can put a sterile male drape over it, and that works. So you can come down half an hour before the planned section and get it all ready. But you do have to communicate your labour ward when you're doing that. And this is the section, which I'm pretty sure we will run, so I can try in a minute. See if we can get it. As for what it did for us, well, we showed very early on, we looked at our elegant compliance of our bundle for Get Set. Here we are, we started, and here we were a year in, that we were doing lots of things really, really well. But look at what happens, you see the Life Start trolley in there, or even just a transformer to hold the baby on. It's all over the place and not very good. We started Get Set 2, we got a bit better at it, but we have more work to do. So our overall bundle compliance is getting much better, but it's not brilliant. What we did for our temperatures, well, in collaboration, we sorted it completely. We're very happy with that. And we are very, very happy that when people who are familiar with using Life Start and who are positive about it go to labour wards, the team, we get a really good result. And what I suppose we have done is we've shown that since we started, we discovered that actually only a small number of our babies were getting delayed cord clamping of over 60 seconds. These queues, I've just split it into quarters just now, it's not a statistical analysis, but every 3 months. We really weren't doing well, and we have got a lot better. And our median duration of delayed cord clamping has also got much better, and our ability to provide respiratory support throughout that is much better. And our use of the Life Start has got much better. And our ability to take these much more stable and monitor babies 2 months for a labour ward is much better. But there's still work to do. So when it goes well, I think we've achieved well transfused, well transitioned babies who are on lovely respiratory support from the outset. That baby's CPAP will not change from the delivery suite until it comes off CPAP. They're fully monitored with all their monitoring leads on, and they don't come off now. That's them on for good. They get wrapped in a nice hot towel and they go straight to mum for a cuddle, and they're admitted to our unit nice and warm. And our sense is these babies are much more stable. So that's really it. I'm going to leave that one in case anyone asks about it. So that's what we do. If I can think of a way of getting this video up in a minute, I will. If you want to ask any questions about it.
In terms of actually, we're hoping to get the Life Start trolley on the road again within the next few months. How did you prepare people for it originally? How do you recommend that we get that ready?
Yeah, so we did the wrong thing originally. We thought, well, we've got that, that's easy enough. Just go and use it. And people just didn't use it, or they used it and said, oh, it's you can't swivel the top, the cord's too short, it doesn't work. The obstetricians don't like it, it gets in the way and it gathers dust. So to get to the point where we're maybe at sort of 60% uptake for our less than 31 weekers, we've really had to do a huge amount of teaching. I think you need to get a group together, I think, that are going to be champions for it. And you need labour wardens. You need labour wardens, you need midwifery leads, you need obstetric input, you need definitely nurses in your neonatal unit, because they are the people who are kind of almost constant. And your middle grade tier of doctors, yes, it's great to get them being involved, you've got them up to speed quickly, but they change. So you need to get people involved, and then you need to decide what your SOP is, how you're going to use it. I can send you ours, it's fine, absolutely. And then you need to make the kit easy to set up and accessible. You may or may not, and you need to decide what your kit's going to be. So you might not want to have all that monitoring on it. You may well, it's easily enough done, but you need to absolutely standardise what it is. And then we did bedside teaching, taking the trolley around, getting people who were on service looking after babies to set it up. We did it with the night staff. We have done lots of, every induction we do lots of teaching, we've done lots of presentations. And it's still not quite enough to get everyone. We've very much got, I would say, teams of people who are agreed to it and will do 4 or 5 minutes. And with other people who, and you know who they are. You go in and there's the baby being delivered and you say, oh, life start, yeah, the baby was too flat, the cord was too short, just had to come up and go. And it's getting over that education barrier, that fear, I think, of using it. Using it effectively, sometimes as the obstetricians, but not often. The obstetricians, by and large, are very happy. The midwives love it, particularly in delivery, vaginal delivery, because the mum gets to see the baby. She can sit up, usually, look at the baby, see what we're doing, touch it, and then we can get it up to her very quickly. And that cuddle which we put into it, and I didn't think too much about, I think is turning out to be really important. That first homework for mum before we take the baby away. We're just looking at the safety of that, but I think if I make cuddles, as long as they're monitored, is fine. Whether or not we could do it longer or something, this is another question. But for me, I think we need to now do Get Set 3. And what I'd like to do is put a wee camera on the trolley to video what we do and then play it back each week as an audit and say, okay, look at what happened. Maybe you weren't managing the air week, it's all a bit novel. The first few we did, people just stood and stared and they didn't do anything. It was quite strange that a section, if you put neonatologists into a section, scrubbed up and they get up there and the baby's given to them, it kind of throws like rabbits in the headlight. They just, so you need to teach people and you need to sort of emphasise stimulation, drawing, keeping them warm, getting them monitoring. I think the thing that unnerves people a bit is not having control and not having the ability to immediately get heart rate. Because if your reception is quite difficult and ECG leads don't always stick, and saturation takes a bit longer to come up. But if your baby's breathing, you know they're transitioning. The other way around it is we've had a trial of a little handheld Doppler. We used a vascular probe rather than the ones fetal medicine use, and you can stick it in the pre-cording, and everyone can hear the heart rate. So we're thinking about doing that. It's another bit of kids.
How do you get ECG electrodes to stick? Dry them really well.
You have to dry, and it kind of possibly comes down to who's putting them on. We've played around with different ECG rates, and I think we've probably sourced the best, stickiest ones now. But you might say for a 23, 24, 25, we could even do that anyway. But so you just have to trust a little bit to what you're doing until the saturation picks up quite quickly. So
your perform the ECG leads picks up the heart rate quicker than the saturation?
Well, all the studies, all the research will tell you it does. But in practice it's very variable because it depends how well they stick. Saturation is much more reliable generally. So we stick the ECG leads on first and then the sat pole. And it comes out through the hole cut in the side of the back.
And in situations where you have difficulty while doing this, or there is a contraindication as you mentioned, like abruption, do you practice goat milking or do you?
It's a really good question. We don't. I think we probably should, but there's a caution, and you know this study here showed pediatrics. This was
On cue,
North American study. They did a randomised control trial, so about 80 babies in each limb, so it was quite substantial. And the cord milk, I think they did 4 milks of the cord versus 60 seconds DCC. Now this wasn't physiologically delayed cord lamp, it was 60 seconds. And they weren't necessarily stimulating again the baby. There were no real differences in outcomes, but on echo measures and some other subtle measures, there was increased output and flow in the babies that had the milking of the cord. So maybe if you weren't getting your baby to briggies, maybe there is some value in milking. But it's not in press yet, but the same group then set up a multi-centre trial to look at this for much bigger numbers, 400 odd babies, and then the trial was stopped because the smallest babies getting cord milking got significantly more IVH. So there's a bit of caution around it. Maybe we should do it for our term babies for flat at birth. You know, when we really talked yet about should you clamp the cord and run in a term baby, or should you wait? But that's another big cultural shift. So maybe that's the role for them.
I think sort of somewhere deeply ingrained in our consciousness, we kind of think of the cord as a fairly passive thing. And I think we tend to forget that as long as there hasn't been an abruption, the baby is still being oxygenated transplacentally until that cord is either until the placenta separates or until the cord's clamped.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of forget that.
Yeah, we do. So why did I see if I can get this video up? Someone said you've got the Liverpool simulation one. You want to show that one? Likewise. If you into this, I could show yours, but you didn't see down to it. Well, let's look at it.
Hopefully by that time you'll manage to get some kind of chemical.
I'm so sorry.